Hey, we're back here with Katherine on the AFS Health and Care podcast, back for another episode. Like I always say, these talks and episodes where we're talking to members and getting their like personal stories are absolutely my favorite. So, Katherine, you've been a member here since I think it was March, like beginning of the year. Nurse practitioner at Packard, correct?
Correct.
Is it mom of two?
Mom of two, yep.
Mom of two. And how old are they?
10. My 9-year-old just turned 10, and then 8. Yeah.
10 and 8.
10 and 8.
Okay,
yep,
got
two
it.
boys.
Got it. And I mean, you were always an exerciser, but you came to see us, I remember, because you were in mom mode. You were running, and there was a gap in like the strength training piece.
Yes, and my running was not very consistent. I would say it was like some socially here and there with friends, and it was like not very much routine, but
totally. But it was like my personal health and fitness was kind of secondary or tertiary from what I remember.
Correct. Yes.
It was like nurse mode, mom mode, and I'll fill in the gaps for my own fitness.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and then when you and I talked, it seemed like that was a turning point where it's like, okay, I got to prioritize this a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So here's what I want to start with. You can open up however you want, but I'm curious to hear more about how you went from, personal health and fitness to be a secondary or tertiary goal to getting to the point where it's like, okay, I got to do something here. Like what led you to that prioritization of your health and fitness?
That's a good question. I think I just started not feeling great, not feeling like myself. And I know what it's felt like to be in a good exercise routine and how good I feel emotionally, mentally, and then how it sort of leads to your whole days. Like when you start out exercising, then you kind of eat better, and then you have more energy and all of the things. And so I think I was getting to a point where I just, first of all, just kind of like felt like I was in a rut.
Yes.
And it's not that I wasn't doing anything. Like I am active, like you mentioned. It's like I'm playing with my kids. I'm doing things. So I wasn't sedentary per se. But I wanted to harness that feeling again, I think. And then also I think there has been like a slow putting on weight, which I hadn't done before because I've always been kind of the wiry kid, like the string bean kid, if you will. And so even though I wasn't like overweight, I'm just like, my pants aren't fitting anymore. I just don't feel good. I'm like skinny fat, if you will. So I think prioritizing exercise, but also prioritizing like wanting to feel strong. Yeah. For once, wanting to feel, and able to keep up with my kids, all of those things.
Big time. Yeah. What you said, most people feel, or most people say when they start a health and fitness program, it's that like, I don't feel like myself again. And I think that's so powerful, but it's so common, particularly as people become either engrossed in their career or engrossed as a parent, especially like parenting younger children. Like they need your entire attention and being. I'm curious to hear, because you've been in healthcare for a while. Like, how does your perception as a healthcare worker help or influence your health and fitness for your own self?
Sure. I mean, I think there's just the whole level of you got to practice what you preach a little bit. And so I'm sitting there telling someone they need to exercise. And if I'm not prioritizing exercise, and I have the means to prioritize exercise in my life, my husband's into fitness. I've grown up in a home where I think I have all the foundation in a sense, where my parents we were an active family. We ate fairly healthy. It feels like there's no excuses for me. If I'm going to expect someone else, maybe in a different socioeconomic status or with all these other challenges to exercise, and I'm not even prioritizing it for myself, there's a disconnect there. So I think being a healthcare provider, I really feel strongly that I do need to be a good example for people. And then also the more I do that, the more examples I have to draw on to be able to tell them like, well, hey, this is how I'm fitting it into my life. Maybe you could try this, or yeah, could you make your walking your dog a little more vigorous? Can you, how can we work together then to achieve your goals? Because I have more experience to draw on in that
Big
way.
time. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to hear how you got into that field. What drew you to nursing and healthcare?
Oh, interesting. I think there were a couple nurses I had in my life that a couple aunts, and actually both of them, they seemed to balance. One of my aunts was was a really good runner. Ironically enough, actually, I know two nurses that were like, they would run, and so then they would volunteer doing things with like their kids, and then they would also be kind of healthcare providers as well. So I think those two things went together. And then I think I didn't actually always know I wanted to do nursing per se. I sort of started that knowing I wanted to do some sort of healthcare, but then I really liked the just kind of working alongside people and helping them kind of reach different sort of goals. So I've kind of bounced around into different kinds of nursing, but now I'm in primary care, which I enjoy. Yeah,
got it, primary care. And what's the demographic you're working with in primary care?
So it's a community health clinic. So we serve anyone in the community. I would say we are also targeting some more marginalized populations or people that maybe are a little bit underinsured or Medicaid, or maybe even uninsured or undocumented population. I also do some outreach with the homeless population, or I would say people in permanent supportive housing. So
I think, and I remember you said that a couple days ago when we ran into each other in the strength room, which I think is powerful. Like health, and Mike will preach on this a lot, but health should be accessible to everyone and anyone. And our role, like in the fitness industry and healthcare industry, is to try to make that as real of a thing as possible.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I think that's so powerful. When you go into a homeless community, like how are you bringing in health to them? Is it through movement? Is it through assessments?
Yeah. So the people I serve with, or I should say I do home visits with, are through Avalon Housing. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, excuse me. But they're housed now, but they were homeless at one point. So they're in what's called permanent supportive housing. So there's a housing first sort of initiative where, so you get people housed, then they can achieve better health outcomes, decrease hospitalizations and things. Because no one can, when you're actually on the street, it's impossible it's impossible to be healthy, right? So myself and another physician, we go to people in these environments that also maybe have some case management and things, and we do home visits sort of either in their homes or in a clinic that's in an apartment building. So it feels a little bit more welcoming, I think. I think there's also been some people are, actively using substances or things too. So there's like a stigma there with going to see a healthcare provider in a clinic. A lot of people have experienced a lot of judgment, a lot of bad experiences with healthcare providers.
Interesting.
So it's kind of a meet people where they are mentality. And so I think when I do those visits, it's really much like, okay, we're starting wherever you are, and we're trying to figure out how we can move you forward, move the pendulum forward a little bit. And so sometimes, like with my diabetics, it's just a lot of education on, hey, pop isn't the best choice in your life, for all of your beverages.
Right.
Like, how can we just reduce that? And how can we add more movement into your day? You walk your dog. Okay, how can we push that? Can you take your dog out a couple times a day? Can you, whatever it is. So
it's challenging. And I don't want to go too far down this path, but it's sad because you can do all the education in the world, but in that socioeconomic landscape, the access to healthy foods, like you got a liquor store in every corner and all they sell is Faygo. Yeah. And even if the person knows, I shouldn't drink pop, but that's the only thing they got at the
I know.
So like there's a ton of, not saying like that, we need to do more of what you just said. We as like health and fitness but there also needs to be like larger changes to create access.
Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely. Access. Yeah.
Yeah, big time. Okay, so all right. So and you've been a nurse for how long?
So I was an RN first, so since 2007, and then I went back to school, and then I've been a nurse practitioner since like 2011, I think.
Okay,
So
awesome. You love it.
I do like it,
Yeah.
and I like that I've been able to do some different varieties of nursing and at different stages of life and things like that. So
Got it.
I
Love
do
it.
enjoy it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to okay. You started the program with us. Mm-hmm. Was this the first program that you've done that did center more around like a structured resistance training, strength training program, or have you done things in the past?
I've only, I would say, dabbled in the past. Like
Dabbled.
yeah. I've never done a real program like this. I've had just because my husband has a little bit of a background. He's made me some workouts before,
Yeah.
and so it's been very helpful to have a workout made for
Yeah.
me and
yeah.
structured for me, because
I love it.
otherwise I'm like, should I just do a few bicep curls? Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So this is the first time I've done like a real fitness program like this.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, when you came in March, you met with Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Chris was your coach, and we every at least for your first 3 months, we'll implement the plan. We'll reassess at the 3-month mark.
Mm-hmm.
We have some data here to share with some of the things that have changed from a physiological standpoint.
Okay.
Which is very impressive. I don't know if you know this or if Chris shared it with you yet.
He showed me some of it, I think.
Okay. But I want to hear more from you. Like, what did you notice? What changes, positive or negative, did you notice from when you and I first met in that office for your initial conversation at the 3-month mark, or even now with incorporating this routine?
Yeah. Great questions. Well, so one of the things that I think was really helpful when I first met with Chris was actually just narrowing down what my goals actually were, because I don't think I came in knowing I wanted to exercise more and get that into my life,
You
but
did do a pull-up, didn't you?
I did want to do a pull-up, and I'm still not there, but that is still
That's
on the
goal?
list. It's still on the
I love
list.
it. All right, great.
So he was kind of like, you're all over the place. Like, what are you, like, we got to prioritize here.
That's funny hearing Chris say that, because Chris is always all over the place too.
Oh, that's pretty funny. So I kind of really ended up setting the goal. I mean, my goal was really like a process goal. There was no end goal. I'm like, I want to work out consistently. Like, I want to show up. That is like that was like my first goal. I'm like, I just want to show up to my 3 scheduled workouts every day. And so what felt really good at the 3-month mark is I hadn't missed a workout. So that was like for me, it was about creating the routine. And so that was like a big win.
That's huge. So
Yeah.
that's a big one.
Yeah.
How did you not miss a workout? Because that's like unheard of in 3 months.
So I will say there were a couple times I think maybe I traveled, but I brought my workout with me and I made a modification to it.
Yeah.
So I really, every week I just prioritize, like, this is a priority for me. I know I'm going to feel better. So if something switches, like I know I had it kind of set up. I was going to come Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings. And I was on the wait list for a little while because there weren't spots. So I was trying to fill in where I could come. And then a lot of those spots opened up. And then if I knew I couldn't get up the morning, I'm like, oh, well, now I have to switch to a different schedule. And so I would schedule it all out for the week so that I could make sure I hit all 3. And then if I knew there was one I couldn't get to, I would try to come up with like a backup plan at home or something like that to come up with like a home version of the workout.
Good for you.
So yeah, so that's been great, and I've still been really consistent even up to this point. So that feels like that was my number one goal, and that feels the best, more than any like changes in my body or anything.
I love it. Yeah, a couple things. Number one, I think that's incredible. Full-time healthcare worker, full-time mom, to prioritize that and not miss a workout. Like, that's huge, and it sounds like blocking it in your calendar was a big thing. Was that like a week, like every week you would do that, or the month?
Yes, and then I kind of set up, with the automatic scheduling. I'm scheduled for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I know there's wait lists on those days. And so if I don't show up, there's accountability there because someone else wants that spot because those are high demand spots. So if I can't, I have to be really intentional about where else am I going to fit it in when I have to cancel one of those. And so then I have to replan the whole week. And so I do.
Got it.
So I do it kind of on a weekly basis, knowing like when I'm looking at my week, what's gonna happen.
Huge. Here's the other thing too. When people have a goal, whether it's a fitness goal to increase strength or improve body composition, performance, whatever it is, the exercise selection, the intensity, the frequency, the volume, like all these little markers that influence success towards that goal, they all pale in comparison to consistency.
Absolutely.
So like you can have the best workout on planet Earth, where it's like, man, I had the right intensity, I progressed properly, I had high energy. But if you do that once a month, like you're not going to achieve your goal. Versus if you have average okay workouts, but you do it
right
consistently, like week in and week out, that's where outcomes happen.
Yes.
So I think that's important to note. Like when people think, oh, I need to set a goal, lose weight, lose 50 pounds, or do this marathon by this day. Outcome goals are great, but sometimes it could just be your process goal. Like
absolutely
be consistent.
And I've read enough on habit change. I'm just one of those people. I've read a lot of habit change books.
Do you have a favorite?
I love like Atomic Habits.
Oh, James Clear.
Yeah. So, and he actually uses the analogy. Actually, he has one of my favorite analogies, which is it's like right at the beginning of the book about the ice melting. I don't know if you remember that.
It's been so long since I read it.
So basically, it's kind of one of those things where let's say an ice cube is 26 degrees and it goes to 27 and nothing happens, and 28 and 29 and 30. And then finally you get to 32 degrees and it starts to melt, right? And but you had to do all those incremental steps to get to that point. And so I've really kind of I that's another analogy I use with my patients too, is just, sometimes the change isn't immediate, but you had to do that whole foundation building there.
Yes.
And so it's like, if you want to be a runner, you have to run. Like if you want to be an exerciser, you have to exercise. And that's having that, like, kind of knowing that that's what I want. I want to be someone who exercises. It's like, I just have to show up. And then the results will happen in some capacity with consistency. So
no, that's a big point. I just had a conversation with someone last week that they attached the process to an outcome, but in a way that wasn't realistic. I think the goal was, hey, I had this goal of I want to improve or increase muscle, but I got to do. I forget the number, but it was not realistic in the time frame. It was like 10 pounds of muscle in the next month. And I'll do all the work, but if month one comes and I don't have the muscle, I'm done. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a hard thing to diffuse from, because people want instant gratification. Our industry doesn't do the greatest job of setting realistic expectations when you're starting a process. So having people attach more to the process, just for the process versus the outcome it might lead. Whether it's going to lead to an outcome or not, that necessarily doesn't matter. What's most important is like that you do the thing every week and raise the temperature on the ice, because at some point it's going to be 32 degrees and things change. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts, or I don't know if you have any insights or advice on how you get people to wrap their arms around that concept?
I think probably the best way is to personal stories of other people. I mean, it's kind of how I've identified, because sometimes it's hard to see in yourself, or looking back through other times that has happened in your own life when you kind of put in the work and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, I had kind of an outcome. And even just looking back on how much I've improved, like sometimes with patients, it's like the weight's not coming off the scale, but sometimes we have other data, like, oh, your cholesterol's down, or, and people get really excited by that. It's like cutting out those couple of pops or whatever actually paid off, even though, yeah. So I think being able to do that reflection, for other instances or things where it's like, even if I just did it, 15 minutes, a few times a week over the course of 3 years, compared to never doing it, you like made some improvements,
Big
right?
time.
So
Big time. Absolutely. I think too, there's also a ton of mental health benefits that happen immediately
absolutely.
when you're moving or implementing a health behavior change, particularly exercise and physical activity. Like after a workout, and it might not be the best workout in the world, but biology kicks in, and like there are hormones that get released. There's blood flow that goes to the brain, and it's like physiologically what happens to the brain helps people feel better immediately. It's like an
Yes.
immediate thing, and that's what I try to get people to latch onto. Is like this outcome down the road. It's important to have it, but don't wake up and think about that every single day.
Right.
Think about the things you have control over, the process, and also try to think about the benefits that you'll get from that. You're going to feel better. You'll show up in your relationships better. You'll go to work better, in a better mood.
Yep.
You'll be more on alert. Like all these little like 24-hour things that happen. That's the thing. At least for me, that's
Absolutely. Yes.
Because I don't have patience. I like to see things right now, so I'll try to latch on to the like immediate effects that happen and let that carry me through every day.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense.
I blame Amazon. 2-day shipping. I think that ruined everybody's patient level. So this process isn't all roses, though, right? Like we've talked about what's worked, how you've been feeling, which is all great. But what challenges showed up for you when establishing this kind of routine?
I think it's still a struggle with choosing to prioritize this.
Okay.
Because when you have so many competing, like I could easily devote more time to sleep or work. I could easily hit the snooze button. So I think it's still making that decision that this is important, because I think it's as much as it's a part of my life right now. It's I'm really hoping I get to the point where I really miss it if I'm not doing it, and it's like super automatic, and it still is taking some concerted effort to schedule and make this a priority. And so that's taking a little mental bandwidth.
Yes.
So I would say that's still a little bit of a challenge. And then I think, now that I am kind of in a routine, it's sort of also just deciding like, well, what's next? And then how do I take this sort of to the next level in a way that feels good?
Let's talk about that real quick.
Okay.
Like, I mean, when you think about the next level, what shows up for you?
So one thing is, I think I have not really brought the diet piece in yet.
Okay.
Like I eat pretty healthy, but I'm not doing like the nutritional support for my workouts like I could. And I'm trying to get like more protein and things like
Got
that.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's like, that's kind of another level of, meal preparation, which has always been a challenge for me. I'm just like having to like, okay, shop and meal plan and all of these things that take some other like prioritization. So
Totally. Yeah, it's every decision we make has a trade-off. And there are real life constraints. Like, we're not, most of us in this place, I shall say all of us at AF, that we don't have anybody that's getting paid a ton of money to compete as bodybuilders or physique athletes. They're like for real people with families and jobs. And there's actually a great infographic from Precision Nutrition. It's called The Cost of Being Lean. And, the name is catchy, but it's basically, it does a great job of laying out what life has to look like at various body compositions.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like, all right, if I'm or if I want to achieve X% body fat, here's what life has to look like. I got to do this much exercise. I have to sleep this much. Here's my rules and constraints around eating out, social relationships, and alcohol. Like, basically, the leaner one wants to achieve, or like the lower the body fat percentage goes, the more life trade-off there is. And it's really interesting. You get to a point where the trade-off just is not worth it. Like if you're a real human with real family and stuff.
Right.
And I came across that a couple years ago. I'll have to send it to you. It's really cool, but it just puts things in perspective.
Sure.
All All right, so the nutrition piece is something that you're
Yeah, the
trying to
nutrition
balance.
piece, and then I would say just in terms of this isn't necessarily a challenge, but just a goal is is actually getting faster at running
Love
because
it.
my son started doing cross country this year, which was
Okay.
fun, and he's faster than me.
Oh, not
And
not cool.
no, not cool. You're a 10.
Yeah.
So I got to volunteer a little bit like for on the cross country team and run with the kids, and I'm like, oh, I'm like not that in shape. And we did a 5K together, which was really fun, and
Yeah.
he beat me by a lot, and he was trying to hold back, because he didn't want to get separated, and so I'm like, okay, I need to get faster so I can keep
Love
up
it.
with you. So that's kind of a little bit of a goal of just starting
Very
to
cool.
get that added back in.
I love it. No, hey, if you keep getting strong, that was some of the things that happened with some of your results in 3 months. We do a battery of assessments, but the thing that stood out was your strength increase. So we'll do lower and upper body strength testing, and your strength tests went from the first 3 months. Your lower body strength went up 20%.
Oh, wow.
Your upper body pushing and pulling strength went up, I think it was 15 or 17%. Which is huge. I mean, like that's big. That's big changes. It's probably up higher now because I mean you've been here since March.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun seeing all the data on the app.
Yeah. But my point in saying that is, hey, if we continue to get you stronger, that could definitely help get you faster. You just every stride you perform, you're going to be covering more distance. So, what about any other goals that you have from a health fitness standpoint, and if so, why do they matter so much to you?
I mean, I think there's that ongoing goal of continuing to invest in my strength training. I feel better carrying more muscle. I have to say, I just it's really fun getting stronger. One of the things, this isn't a goal, but that's happened is I had kind of a shoulder I don't know if I'd call it an injury, but it's one of those things like every time I went back to try to do any sort of strength training, I'd like retweak this shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's been great because having the support here, I feel like I've kind of worked through that where now like my shoulder does not hurt with like any exercises. And so now I can like push more weights and I'm not like worried about injuring or straining my shoulder.
Yeah.
So that's been such a win. So I would love to get that pull up. I mean, that is definitely, and I'd like to just see how strong I can get, but I don't really have like a specific end goal. It's just fun as I get new exercises to like be able to challenge, can I get deeper on this squat? Can I put more weight on this? Can I,
you're enjoying the process. It's like a learning
really am,
process.
because I've never really been strong. Like I said, I've been kind of this like string bean kid. I've had I'm definitely more of a slow twitch,
You got it.
slow twitch person, like endurance, but never been strong. So it feels I'm not strong by comparison to a lot of other people, but for me, I'm strong for me and it feels good.
Awesome.
And so it's exciting to just like, well, how far can I go? How much can I push myself?
Yeah.
So
yeah, love it. Big time. No, that's cool. When you find something, especially when it's, a net positive for your health that you are curious about, you enjoy, you want to make refinements and really pour into it. That's how you stay consistent. And so I think that's awesome. Here's the thing though, on the flip side of that, most people think of strength training. Well, they think of exercise as something that's hard and arduous and not for me because I'm not fit and I don't belong. And all those people are they're fit people. That's not for me. And unfortunately, that's most of our country and a lot of our membership. Our membership that we work with. Most of them they value health, but they don't feel like they belong at a
right.
Planet Fitness or Crunch Fitness or a Fit Body Boot Camp. Like those are all fit people things. What do you have in terms of, or what would you say to those people that are kind of on the fence of engaging in an exercise routine, but don't necessarily feel like they belong all that much or afraid to start?
I would say just start. I said the biggest barrier is starting, and I think your goals and everything just kind of comes about like once you begin. I think that becomes more clear once you just give it a try and you realize how good you feel after you try it. A place like this, it's just the community is great. I mean, because there's such a range of ages and people, body types and all kinds of things. I actually love seeing different body types and talking to people, even talking to like Adam, who, he's like, I've got really short legs. Like I can do this exercise in a very different way than this person over here with a longer torso and longer legs. And, so certain exercises are going to be easier for some people than other people.
Yes.
But I think fitness is at any age, any body habitus, any, stature. I think it's for everybody. And I think having sort of a growth mindset of there's no ceiling, like we can all be better than we started, and trying not to compare ourselves to one another, just because we all do start in a different place and have sort of different limitations.
Yeah.
But you can still improve upon what you're capable of.
Big time. I'm with you. And everybody has their own starting point. It's all relative to where they are from a fitness standpoint and what they feel comfortable with. I think one of the main things that keeps people out of engaging in health and fitness is the safety, more emotional safety, like than physical. I think a lot of times people have had maybe not the best experience. Like kind of you mentioned with healthcare, it happens all the time in fitness. They'll go to the gym, they'll work with the trainer that may not be the right trainer for them, may not take into their considerations around health and goals and lifestyle into the equation. And that's what keeps people out. Or they go to a place where it's a bunch of, young meathead dudes that are big muscly guys.
Right.
So in that sense, I mean, do you resonate with that at all, or like when you explored us or previous fitness options, was that ever a factor of like, I don't really feel like that place is for me?
Yes, I think my limitations were a little bit different, or I would say barrier to entry into a gym, and some of that for me, it's not necessarily not feeling like I belonged, just like sort of not knowing what to do when I got there.
Oh yeah.
I think I have a little bit of, I'm going to say like analysis paralysis of like, and maybe it's even a little bit of perfectionism or something of like, well, I want to make sure I'm doing this the right way. And so like, well, what's the right routine and how often do I need to do this to get results? And there was, like you mentioned, the consistency is the important part of getting results. But there is when you're kind of first entering in of like, am I doing this exercise correctly?
Yeah.
Am I doing the right quantity, the right intervals? There's so much information out there.
Yep.
Like, I know I've seen this exercise. I know I can do this exercise, but am I doing it in the right quantity, time? Yeah. It feels sometimes a little bit daunting to make sense of all the information out there. So that was, I think, one of those things for me, not knowing like what to prioritize, how to prioritize, what to do. So with a trainer, I don't know, that might feel different, but I kind of equate the trainer thing. I do tell people, same thing with therapists and things. Sometimes it's just not the best fit, and that's okay. You got to find someone that you got to just find the vibe that matches you. You got to find the activities you like. You got to find the therapist that you feel comfortable, that you can be vulnerable with.
Yes.
Trainer, same thing. I think they're very similar in that way.
Yeah.
So I would say the barrier to entry was a little bit different for me.
That's a big one actually though too.
Yeah.
Is inundated with all of this information.
Yeah.
And you go out there, especially with resistance training, there's so much nuance, there's so much learning, so much technicality. Like you need to go to school to a certain, you can't like really just go into a gym and put it all together like in a hodgepodge way. If you do, you might get injured actually. So yeah, that's actually a big barrier that I've heard a lot of people that come into exercise, typically resistance training. It's the last thing they'll get into because of all of that complexity. And listen, if you're exercising, you're moving, huge win. But on all the emerging research on health is really pointing to strength training as being like this new, robust modality of exercise. Because yes, we all know it helps with bones and muscle tissue, but now there's findings that are saying, hey, this is great for your cardiovascular health, much like jogging or spinning or swimming. So yeah, I think finding ways to declutter that noise,
Absolutely,
and have a plan in place when you go into resistance train, that's a huge barrier for many people.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, good point. Okay. All right, you shared your goals. Want to get faster to beat your son. Still got the pull-up thing happening. I think it is a good point to accept, like, hey, this is always going to be something that's going to take some mental energy around to make a priority. Like any habit, the more you do it, the more it's just automatic. Like it won't be as big of a lift to reschedule your exercise.
Right.
But it is always something that you're going to have to put some energy towards. But I think accepting that is big. Just like brushing your teeth in the morning.
Right.
Like you got to do it every morning. You don't really think too much about it, but it happens. People that are listening and watching are members and people that are considering, moving into a program to better their health, whether it's exercise or something beyond exercise. Just kind of want to get your final thoughts to what are some insights or suggestions you would give those people just to move closer towards health.
We'll sign up here. So that's one. Because I think one of the, just to give you guys a little bit of a plug here, one of the things that was just so helpful was, first of all, having the accountability to come. For me, that was huge. Secondly, having the plan made, just because, like I said, that mental clutter of just knowing what to do. And it's like, if I just have to show up and I just do my plan and I just am getting better every time. And the exercises are getting easier, or at least I'm more comfortable with them, but then then it's getting challenged in a different way, more weight or more reps or less reps and less rest and all of the things. So I think starting with a place like this is fantastic. But if you don't have access to something like that, just grabbing some sort of online program that you feel like you could follow or might hold you accountable, could be another great option, or grabbing a friend to have for accountability.
Accountability buddy.
Yep. So all of those, I think, would be, if I were doing this again, are things that I have found helpful.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing your story and your insights. For those watching and listening, you guys, if you appreciated this, you can share this with a friend. If you resonated with this, go ahead and click the subscribe button, and we'll tune in next time. But thank you guys for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for sticking around, watching, learning. If you extracted some value, please share this with your friends and family. You can also click the subscribe link. I believe if you're on the Spotifys and Apples and you're listening to this, there's a subscribe link at the bottom of the episode. If you're watching on YouTube, bottom right of this video, you can click subscribe to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Thank you again for joining us on this episode. And with that being said, be well, stay connected, and take care of your health.